Boosie Badazz posted a list of rappers who never verified protective music custody, and Young Thug was on that list. But when Thug defended the people who do monitor PC, Boosie came back with 5 words that set the internet on fire. "You examine the PC, you coward." This whole situation actually began with a completely different beef between Boosie and Kodak Black. Throughout early March 2026, the two of them had been going at each other. And around March 7th through the 9th, Kodak hopped on Boosie's Instagram Live, where things got heated music fast. Boosie went at Kodak for his collaboration with 6ix9ine and his alleged substance use. But the greatest issue Boosie had with Kodak came down to protective custody. On March 12, 2026, Boosie went on Instagram Live and delivered what might be the most music-detrimental statement you can make about another rapper in this culture. His exact words to Kodak were, "You inspect PC, mind, Mr. PC. You check PC. Nothing you rap is valid anymore, buddy. Nothing you rap is valid anymore, bro. Nothing you rap is valid." And that's when Boosie took things a step further by going to X, formerly known as Twitter, and publishing a list of rappers who he claimed never checked PC during their time behind bars. The list music included T.I., NBA, Youngboy, Diddy, Push T, Gucci Mane, Lil Kim, Bill Cosby, Fetty Music, and Young Thug himself. This post became a trending topic almost immediately, with fans sharing it and debating it and adding names they believed belonged on the list. Boosie had successfully made his point about Kodak while giving respect to the artist who he believed earned it. And that's when Young Thug decided to respond in a manner nobody expected. Young Thug, who was literally on Boosie's honor sheet, decided music to defend protective custody as a concept. His post on X read, "PC is smarter though. That hard gets you nothing but heartaches from your family and kids' music and more charges if there's too much going on in the dormitories." Fresh off serving 97 days in Fulton Music County Jail, a man who by Boosie's own acknowledgement stayed in general population, Young Thug was now arguing that checking PC is actually the smarter move because trying to be hard in prison gets you nothing except more charges if things go wrong and heartache for your family when you can't come home. The response from fans arrived promptly, and the music split was obvious. But nobody's response carried more weight than what Boosie posted next. His reply came in all capitals. And when somebody types in all capitals, you know they're in their feelings. Boosie wrote, "Thugger, if it's smarter to check PC, why music don't you check PC? Because you can't check PC. If you say you are, you're a genuine nay. You're from the trenches. You know how this goes, buddy. You check PC, you're a coward. Music simple as that. Keep that at 100. I feel like you chose the size. SMA doesn't save. No, let him drown. You all know what we joined up for." Boosie was pointing out what he saw as a contradiction in Thug's logic. Music if PC is the smarter alternative, why didn't Thug do it himself when he had the chance? Music and that line about picking sides informs you Boosie felt like Thug was defending Kodak, specifically by defending PC in general. The phrase, "y'all know what we signed up for," landed hard because Boosie was saying that everyone who lives this lifestyle music knows the risks and the rules, and you don't get to alter those rules because things become uncomfortable. Young Thug's follow-up response turned out to be one of the most pensive music statements in any recent rap disagreement. He wrote, "You're right, OG. I'm just saying music some of us detest the police and can't wait to place charges on them. For also, it's a case-by-case situation, but if you're acting gangster, stand on whatever comes with it. Fascia, you're overly right. But I am, because the police have hated me for far too long. They tried everything." Those 2 words at the beginning, which you write as OG, showed respect for Boosie and acknowledged that his principle has merit. But then music came the pivot with "some of us the police hate and can't wait to place charges on Neen Ma for anything," which was Young Thug speaking directly from experience. The Fulton County DA came at him with a 56-count indictment against Music 28 defendants, and he knows precisely what it feels like when law enforcement targets you and looks for any excuse to stack Music more charges. His phrase, "case-by-case situation," became the key line because Thug was contending this isn't black and white. Checking PC might be the right call depending on circumstances, particularly if police are specifically music trying to set you up or hoping you get into a situation so they can add time to your sentence. Atlanta rapper Ro jumped into the discourse with a direct challenge to Thug. Ro had been released from federal music prison in 2023, and his post on X read, "Thug ain't been to not one federal prison yard. He had that weakest trial music, and now he believes he is Escobar. Imagine being called a rat, and music still walked every yard with my bosom out." Ro was making a specific criticism that the Thug's music experience in county jail during a trial doesn't equate to federal prison, where you're on a yard with convicted music inmates. The comparison to Pablo Escobar was intended to dismiss Thug's credentials entirely. Ro also posted a video on Instagram proclaiming he'd rather die than enter PC voluntarily, claiming he'd been in over 40 one-on-one fights across 11 different facilities. Young Thug's response to R was much shorter music and much less diplomatic than his response to Boosie. Music he told R to stop and repeated his case-by-case argument. And that difference in tone between how Thug responded to Boosie versus Ro shows everything about how he views the hierarchy of respecting this conversation. Meek Mill observed his name wasn't on Boosie's original list and wanted to set the record straight with a post that read, "I'm skinny. I walked every yard in every jail I was in and held weight in every jail I was in. But jail is embarrassing, so music, I never speak on it. Came home, changed laws, helped free so many real people, and supplied the jail with resources. I must be a distinct list." Meek was making clear that he walked every yard and earned respect inside. But he also pointed out that since coming home, he's worked to change laws and help free people still incarcerated while supplying jails with resources. Boosie responded to Meek with an apology video, saying he intended to include Meek and Kevin Gates on the list and didn't mean to leave them off. Meek accepted gracefully with, "I got nothing but respect for you." But on the topic of Thug's argument that PC is smarter, Meek had a line that captured the whole debate when he wrote, "We got to dispute this one at trial because this is a legitimate disagreement that reasonable music people can see differently." Understanding why this conversation matters requires knowing what protective custody truly means in prison culture. PC is when an inmate voluntarily requests to be housed separately from the general population for safety. And in theory, that's a reasonable option if you're in danger. But PC units typically house sex offenders, informants who cooperated with law enforcement, former police officers, and people who can't survive in the general population for other reasons. When you check PC, you put yourself in the same category as snitches and predators voluntarily. And according to prison slang references, being called a PC case means you're considered weak or untrustworthy. Music that label follows you when you leave prison too. Back to your community and back to your career. Hip-hop's commercial and cultural economy runs on perceived authenticity, and fans invest in artists who they believe are really about that life. Bobby Shmurda served 7 years in general population, and music even took additional time to protect a co-defendant, which gave him enormous credibility when music he came home. But if it comes out that an artist checked PC, everything they've ever rapped about gets called into question overnight, which music is exactly what Bowie meant when he told Kodak, "Nothing you rap is valid anymore." When Bowie speaks on prison music, his credentials are essentially unmatched. He served approximately 5 years at Louisiana Music State Penitentiary, better known as Angola, which sits on a former slave plantation and houses around 5,100 inmates. 86 of those inmates' music carry convictions for violent offenses, and 75 are serving life sentences. This is one of the most notorious maximum security facilities in the entire United States. While in Angola, Boosie wasn't serving regular time music because he was facing a first-degree murder indictment that carried a potential death sentence by lethal injection, the needle. He wasn't just risking additional charges like Young Thug mentioned because he was fighting for his actual life. A unanimous jury acquitted him in May 2012, and he walked out of Angola in March 2014. That's why he wrote about 699 Inie's snitching situation when I was facing a needle and hadn't broken our fold. Boosie faced the ultimate consequence and still didn't compromise, which is the standard he holds other rappers to because, in his view, If he could do it under those circumstances, nobody has an excuse. Young Thug's experience deserves the same full context because what he went through was brutal in a different way. Police arrested him on May 9, 2022, at his Buckhead home in Atlanta, and he faced 8 music counts, including RICO conspiracy, criminal street gang activity, drug charges, firearm possession during a felony, and possession of a machine gun. The entire indictment named 28 music defendants across 56 counts total, with prosecutors' music alleging that Young Thug co-founded Young Slime Life Music, which they characterized as a Bloods-affiliated street gang responsible for murders and armed robberies and drug trafficking over approximately a decade. His attorney, Brian Steele, described the confinement music conditions as dungeon-like, with a windowless cement cell where overhead lights stayed on 24 hours a day. No exercise and no human contact beyond his attorneys, with food still described as music inedible. Administrative solitary confinement wore him down over time, according to Rolling Stone, and bond was denied at least 4 times during his pretrial detention. Jury selection began on January 4, 2023 music and took 10 months to complete, which became the longest jury selection in Georgia history, with roughly 600 prospective jurors summoned. Opening statements didn't begin until November 27, Music 2023, almost a full year after jury selection started. The trial got hit with scandal when a secret meeting between Judge Glenville, prosecutors, and a key witness led to Brian Steele being held in contempt and arrested. Glenville eventually recused himself, and 2 more judges followed before Judge Paige Reese Whitaker finally music took over. The prosecution's star witness, Kenneth Copeland, known as Woody, disavowed his own prior testimony while on the stand and called it fabricated. On October 31, 2024, Halloween night, Young Thug entered a non-negotiated blind plea where he pleaded guilty to 6 counts and no contest to 2 counts. His sentence music came to 40 years total, structured as 5 years in prison commuted to time served, 15 years of probation, and music 20 years of backloaded prison time that converts to time served if music he completes probation without violations. He walked out of Fulton County Jail that same evening after approximately 97 days behind bars. Freedom came with strict conditions, including a 10-year ban from Metro Atlanta with very limited exceptions. No contact with known gang members or co-defendants except for Gunner and his brother Unfun. No gang references in his music. 4 anti-gang presentations to Atlanta music youth every year. 100 hours of community service annually and random drug tests with property inspections. If he violates any of music these conditions, that suspended 20-year prison sentence becomes very real. When Young Thug posted, "The police hated me FR. They tried everything," music he wasn't exaggerating because they hurled everything at him. And here's what makes it worse. The entire YSL RICO case ended with 0 murder convictions across all 28 defendants. All those resources, all that time, and they couldn't get a single murder conviction. 2 men with legitimate prison experience arrived at completely different conclusions from their time inside. Boosie's position is that the code music exists without exceptions, and if you claim street origins, you handle business and the general population regardless of the risk. Music he lived this standard at Angola while facing the death penalty, which gives him the authority to enforce it. Music Young Thug's position carries more complexity because yes, the code exists and yes, gangsters should stand on it, but not every situation is the same. Some people face music-specific targeting from law enforcement, and some people have enemies inside who were placed music there specifically to get at them. Checking PC in those cases might not be cowardice, but survival instead. Boosie sees absolute terms, while Thug sees situations. What makes this interesting is that Thug didn't check music PC himself because, by his own account and Boosie's acknowledgement, he stayed in the general population for all 97 days. He endured conditions his lawyer called inhumane and watched a music co-defendant get stabbed in his cell. After all of that, he came out and argued that checking PC can be the rational choice, which isn't him making excuses for himself, but him looking at the bigger picture and asking whether the code should apply the same way to everyone in every situation. Fan reactions split along 2 music clear lines. Traditional street culture believers sided with Boosie completely, viewing the code as non-negotiable because if you rap about gangster life, you accepted all the consequences when you chose that path. Prison violence is part of the game, and if you can't handle the general population, you shouldn't have been rapping about being tough. The pragmatic camp aligned with Young Thug's argument that survival should come first, because what's the point of maintaining your reputation if you end up dead or with extra charges that keep you from your family even longer? A generational element showed up in the split, too, with many older heads in hip-hop siding with Boosie's uncompromising stance music, while the younger generation seem more open to Young Thug's approach. This debate connects to other recent controversies around cooperation and credibility in hip-hop. When 6ix9ine cooperated with federal authorities and testified against his 9 Gangster Bloods associates in 2019, condemnation from the hip-hop community came down nearly universally, with Boosie being one of the loudest voices music against him. But when 6ix9ine released his Gooba music video after getting out, it broke YouTube Records music and proved that commercial viability can survive credibility damage even if people said his career was over. Gunna's situation added another layer because Young Thug's own associate entered an offered plea in the YSL case in December 2022 and got released while Music Thug was still locked up. That plea triggered snitch accusations that damaged his peer relationships even though his lawyers maintained he never cooperated against co-defendants. The Boosie Kodak music feud that started this whole conversation actually goes back to 2023 when Kodak collaborated with 6ix9ine, which, in Boosie's music view, is almost as bad as snitching yourself because it crosses a line that shouldn't be music crossed. Young Thug experienced both sides of this debate. He didn't check the PC and endure the exact conditions Boosie holds up as the standard, but he came out questioning whether that standard should apply equally to everyone. His case-by-case framing might not satisfy street purists like Boosie and Roe, but it reflects a lived reality that most of his critics' music haven't experienced at the same intensity. 97 days in solitary confinement with lights that never turn off and food that's inedible and 4 bond denials, and a trial that became music the longest in Georgia history and a co-defendant stabbed in his cell. After all of that, Young Thug asked whether it's really fair to judge everyone by music the same standard when everyone's circumstances are different. He's asking this while fully acknowledging that he chose not music to check PC himself and follow the code, but he's questioning whether the code should be treated as absolute for everyone. Boosie put Young Thug on his honor roll list and ended up in a back and forth with him anyway, which shows how complicated these conversations get. Boosie wasn't trying to disrespect Thug because he was praising him. And the conflict only started when Thug spoke up for people who made different choices. Even in their exchange, you can see mutual respect because Thug called Boosie OG and acknowledged music his points had merit, while Boosie never questioned Thug's personal conduct and just didn't like him defending the practice in music general. Compare that to how Thug responded to Roe with STFU, and you see a hierarchy of respect that both Music Boosie and Thug understand even while disagreeing. Meek Mill's comment about arguing this one at trial captured music the nature of this debate perfectly because it's not a beef, but a disagreement between people who respect each other about how strict the rules should be. Young Thug spent 97 days locked up in conditions his lawyer called dungeon-like, while the state threw everything at him with a 56-count indictment. The prosecution got 0 murder convictions across all 28 defendants. He did all of that without checking the PC and followed the code. Then he came out and argued that maybe the code doesn't have to be absolute for everyone in every situation. And maybe the police hated me. Music FR, they tried everything in relevant context when judging someone's choices. Boosie disagrees because he believes music the code is the code with no exceptions. And he earned the right to that opinion in Angola while facing the death penalty. Meek Mill thinks they need to argue this one at trial. Music R thinks Thug is overrating his own experience. Fans are split right down music the middle. This is one of those rare moments where hip-hop is having a real conversation about its own values. Not just who's winning or losing a beef, but actually debating what the rules should be and how strictly they should be enforced. Music Young Thug responding to Boosie wasn't about defending himself because he was already on the list of people Boosie respected. It was about defending the idea that different people music in different situations might have different correct answers. Whether you agree with that probably depends on how absolute music you think the code should be. But one thing remains certain. This conversation isn't over. The debate about protective custody and cooperation, and what keeping it genuine means in an era when music the system is designed to break you down, will keep coming up. And when it does, people will remember this exchange. Music Boosie, the man who confronted the needle at Angola and didn't fold. Young Thug, the man who spent 97 days in confinement with the lights always on and came out asking questions. Two real ones with different answers to the same query. Watch the video on the left or right and subscribe to the